This time using one of the Joker Mcfarlane bodies and doing another head swap, this time with a more serious look on the face, another custom resin head sculpt from Action Figure Customs. And this body really lends itself to this head sculpt. It's a bit more serious note, a little more sinister in the look, and it required a few more touch-ups of shading to the face. And this dynamic pose really sets it off. So let's take a look how we got there. Here's our blank resin head. There it is on the second from the left. And I've already primered the head. If you see on this light, it's a little difficult to see. But once it's primered, I went ahead and added a liquid mask to cover the areas that I don't want painted. And one of those areas was the teeth. I want to keep the teeth a different color. So I proceeded to use an older paintbrush, a disposable if you will, and I filled in the teeth area. Now just a word of caution, that when you're doing this, you want to fill it in as much as possible so that you can get into all the crevices. If you do a thin layer and you think it's going to be okay, it's not. Because a thin layer will break apart when you start to pull it away. And it'll be really difficult to get in and out of those little crevices unless you have a tool to do so. Even then, it's going to be tedious. So the best thing to do is to work in layers. Layer it in thick, it shrinks as it dries. So once it's dry, come back and do it again. Now, if you have the silly putty, it will actually work better. I don't have it, so I'm using this. So I have to let it dry and then come back and add a second coat, and if needed, a third coat. Now, if you are trying to add a second and third coat while it's sticky, it won't happen. It'll stick to the brush and it'll pull it away. In this case, as it dried, when I finally pulled it away, it actually pulled the primer that's underneath it. It's okay, I went ahead and repainted it with the primer. So you just have to be careful that you don't put it on the areas that don't need to be covered. Otherwise, as you pull it, you can pull away some of your work. So you can either let it air dry or you can use a hair dryer, but at a distance. If you bring it up close to the sculpt, it's going to blow the wet areas onto other surfaces and it's just going to be a mess and you'll have to start over. So now that our liquid mask is dry, and you can see the darker blues, those are the actual recesses or crevices, and then I ended up removing it with a rubber shaping tool, and it came off fairly easy. Nothing got tied up in there. Before we get to that, you can see that I'm clear coating the primered surface. So I want to prep the surface for the next layer of paint, and I want to protect the primer that I have on this. Now, as I mentioned before, when I removed that liquid mask, it removed the primer that was underneath. So in this case, it really didn't matter because it protected the area that I wanted. And I just went ahead and re-primered that surface. So I am now just drying the clear coat that I've applied. I want it to be prepped and ready for the next coat of paint. And the next coat is going to be the flesh tone. And we only want to apply a determined amount of flesh tone in the areas that would be noticeable if it were truly a makeup on a clown. And it's not going to be all over. It's only going to be in the areas that are going to be the eyes, maybe the nose underneath, a little bit on the ears, and around the mouth. So only the areas that are going to keep it looking as realistic as possible, because the rest of it is going to be clown makeup all over the face. And since this has a more sinister and realistic look, that's what we wanted to achieve. And here we go. This was a tough pose to achieve because this figure, although it does have articulation, it really doesn't have that much posability. You still need that stand to balance it out. And once you have it in that pose, make use of it because it's hard to get it into those poses. That torso is hard to pose because if you exceed it, it'll come off. But here he is with the bright green hair and the nice yellow teeth. and that's what our liquid mask protected, and that's what we were able to repaint. I added a darker coat of purple just for depth. I didn't want to change the color of the coat, just more detail to it. Now, it does come with its own accessories, and I added the skull from one of the Marvel Legends figures just for show. Now I'm going to leave you with the rest of this video. I hope that you enjoyed the segment. Please like, comment, and of course subscribe. And don't forget to keep customizing.